Hey, Anthony, have I seen you this year? Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Hello, everyone.
How you doing? Welcome to Fleet. I'm Rick Helmer, the fleet manager.
Okay, nice to meet you. Happy New Year.
Services with Rick.
Oh, excellent.
My Warhead Deputy Director Office.
Just give you a quick overview of what we do at Fleet. So Fleet Management Division, we actually have a couple things going on here. On one hand, this is the administrative portion of the division. And so the county's overall vehicle and equipment fleet is about 4,200 items. But that includes about 1,000 pieces that are heavy apparatus that are either at the landfill, fire department, fire apparatus, or public works. And they have their own maintenance operations that are underneath those departments.
So the fire trucks come under you as well?
Not for maintenance, not for maintenance. So what we do here in an administrative level is we sort of oversee the entire fleet in terms of accountability. We're involved in the procurement of the vehicles, disposal of the vehicles, fueling, tag, title, just overall, just general accountability, tracking everything.
Mm-hmm.
But then we're specifically within our division, we're responsible for maintaining the light portion of the fleet, which is about 3,200. So it's about 3,200 light, about 1,000 heavy. So we kind of have a dual responsibility that we have responsibility for those vehicles that belong to the fire department, even though they're maintaining them.
Okay.
We also provide fuel for volunteer fire departments and municipalities through we provide fuel to them at cost.
Okay.
Help them with there, and then when we get down into the garage, you see on the maintenance side, we also provide maintenance support to municipalities, at their request. We enter into an agreement with them. So there's a number of the towns and cities, volunteer fire departments. Plus, we also work on state vehicles that are assigned to the Department of Social Services, and all those folks pay us to do that work for them. But we're able to be competitive and responsive to them, so they're willing to pay contract with us to take care of their vehicles. So this year we added a couple of customers. A big one was the library system, so we now maintain the library's vehicles.
So all of those are within the 3,200?
No, that's on top of the 3,200. It's about 160 vehicles that we maintain beyond our 3,200 that are basically paying customers.
Okay, those are good.
So up front here, we have our fiscal. We have Dante's our IT analyst. Mr. Boyd is our logistics manager. So he's the motor pool, accountability, fuel all falls underneath him. So it's a lot of work. It's a big fleet, but these guys been doing it for a long time. They know what they're doing, and I think we do a pretty good job.
This entity has been recognized in the top 100 in the nation.
I've heard that. Congratulations. That is
Thank you.
awesome. Congratulations. I have a question about insurance that just came to mind when you talked about the fact that you all handle that aspect of it, right? Do you handle that also?
Well, we work with risk management, and then the Corvell, who's our third-party administrator.
Oh, cool.
But we coordinate the accident repairs and things like that through our shop here. We have what we call a body shop. We're not fixing and painting taking care of accident repairs, but what we do is we coordinate that through contractors.
Okay.
And we sort of go between Corvell, the insurance companies, and the contractors, and not to mention the customers.
And we maintain records, right, of accidents on vehicles and that
Yes.
kind of thing. Yeah.
So Corvell is the provider, you're saying insurance provider?
Yeah, they're the county's contract. They're what we call third-party administrator. So they basically serve as our insurance agent, for lack of just.
Okay. And I guess the question I had in my mind is, and you know what, and this is just because it is this way, are insurance rates compared to other jurisdictions? I'd imagine if they cover a number of jurisdictions throughout the state, I just wonder what our insurance rates are compared to other jurisdictions, because they tend to be so much higher here. I just wonder whether that's just something I was thinking.
Right.
I
I know that we're in a pool with several. I think some of the municipalities and all are in a pool with us.
Okay.
And likewise, I know, for example, I was at Park and Planning for a while, that Park and Planning was in the pool with Montgomery County, so that they generally do tend to kind of go into pools to sort of spread the costs out and get the price down. If we can just take a walk through,
Okay.
I'll show you where the real work gets done.
All right.
So this building's been around since 1994.
Okay.
We have another shop, a smaller shop over in Atlanta. This is our training room. It's basically just a classroom.
Oh, okay.
So we really value training. We're big on training. We spend a lot of time on it. Not just the technical training that the mechanics all have to do to keep up to date in their craft and remain viable as far as being able to work on the new vehicles and all, but also
And a certification, there's an ASE or something like that certification?
Yes.
What is that?
well, what that is, ASE is actually a third party that certifies and provides certification programs for mechanics that's recognized through the whole country. I'll show you something real quick. And, this is our service office.
Hi, how are you?
So this is where our customers come, and this is our staff that interact with them to get the vehicles into those.
You are, okay, you know what, because he proposed it, I wasn't sure how you guys felt about
No,
something like that, something
we-
that's workable.
It is. We have a certain amount of what I would. It's structurally we don't have entry level positions. Or we basically start at the journey level, but we have entry level work. So essentially what we end up doing with this is, to be honest, we pay a journey level mechanic to do some entry level work. We really want to do programs that we can bring people in at that entry level, transition them, and we're willing to look at. So we're excited about that. When I contacted Walter, he was excited, so I went over and met with him. It's just a matter of getting it together.
So one of the things I was always impressed about when I first came here is the fact that this is run like some Borisman type of service dealer center, Not only are we responsible, I'm quite sure Rick talked about the fact we're responsible for the acquisition, replacement, and disposition of literally thousands of vehicles, but also for the actual repair, where we kind of run this like a service center. You have a 28-bay, maybe 30-bay facility here. I'm sure we also have a second facility in Atlanta as well, and really, actually, county vehicle owners, so to speak, the agency, come in, actually stop in here, get a service ticket, there's the waiting room, and actually wait to get the car right there. Absolutely, for the entire county,
All the time.
All the time.
All the time. What's going on as we're here?
Who's responsible for this? Steve? Are you the person who keeps this looking like this? Oh
Well,
my God, this is amazing.
Well, what I always have to qualify when everyone comes here and they talk about how clean this place is and all, and I do this industry, they do a good job. You haven't seen anything till you've seen the other place. That's a lot cleaner. It's a newer shop, which is part of it, but those guys over there really take a pride in how. I'm not saying these guys don't, but they really over there. It's really neat, really clean over there.
So what was interesting, like years when I would come down Central Avenue before I worked with the county, I used to want to know what the heck are these cars turning back up in this lot here? Police cars is 9 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock was at a substation, and voila, absolutely.
Wow.
We have an incredible service center back here.
Fire truck. And I know the reason I was asking you about the fire department, we have to turn over a fire truck this weekend on Sunday. I don't know where that truck went. Steve, you know about this because he should.
I saw a picture of it.
Yeah, so is this something that would be
That would go to fire apparatus and so on Forestville.
Oh,
They're right at Forestville Road and Park Road. They have a facility there as So those, that they handle those directly.
Okay, because luckily nobody was injured. Oh man, I'm very happy to hear that.
Oh, so you got the award.
Also brought the award for innovation and creativity.
How long
Been here 9 years. When I was at the third year, it's a great group. It's a great group of folks that we have. But yeah, this is where our get prepared. There's usually we try and maintain what a 97%
About
96% uptime.
Thank you.
Well, basically what that means is that on any given day, ready to use. 4% maybe somewhere in the maintenance cycle. Well, the county staff people want us to get better. I try to tell them you can only go so far.
Absolutely.
You can,
Yeah.
If you were willing to spend the money, you could be at 100%, but it would be very, very expensive.
That's
There's a line.
rare.
There's a line that, and I think we're doing pretty well. We're far cry from where we were a few years ago. During the recession.
See, it was.
Almost every day. To reference about what we talked about, how many municipalities that's one of the, we take care of our master plans. That's social department special. Hybrids we've got, if you were talking hybrids, we've got probably 80. Pure electric, we're really actually buying our first two. The pure electric, it's going to be a little bit different just because of the charging and the fact that electric is very high. You have to have it right to return. You can get where you want to go.
It's the range anxiety.
Right.
The learning curve is going to.
We have a number.
Yeah, you know.
We have 20 something of what we call plug-in, which is a more robust hybrid than plug-in. And so we're adding a lot of those. And that's a really good. But we're going to try the we call back. We have the two that we're. Well, actually, one of them is going to be here. We'll use it for office cars, so we have to get the vehicle. The other one we're going to put in is that's the plan. They've actually been asking for it. So,
What's got parts room as well?
yes. So really, this is where we work on the parts. On the other side, it's a lot more cluttered over there. They work on trucks, buses, mowers, tractors, anything like that. On the shelf, what can I give you right now? What do I have to order? And then they can let the mechanic know your stuff's ready, come get it. Or sometimes Chris will even bring it back to him if he's
If need be.
so. The parts inventory is about $450,000 right now, which is really high.
Okay.
Part of that has to do with the fact that right now, the police department is by far our biggest customer, and then the sheriff is probably our second biggest customer, and they mirror the police in terms of the kinds of vehicles they have. And right now, we're kind of stuck with about 6 different police cars, just because of changes in the market and what's available. So we're really everything from the Crown Vic to the old Impala, right up through the brand new Interceptor utilities that are going to be hybrids and all. So we're really covering a lot of territory. It probably makes us stock more parts than we really would like to stock.
Okay.
So we're hoping that we're using a lot of analytical data to really identify what can we, because we really want to get that inventory down. That's probably more than it should be.
Okay.
So, but we need what we need.
Yeah, and you have what you need, sounds like, for the most part. Yeah.
Yes. So.
Okay. So now the vehicles for the ones that have to be winterized, and I guess we're thinking about the ones from DPWT and all of that. So what would you say, which division would be, you said police is maybe your most challenging?
They're our biggest
agency?
customers for sure. So that probably makes them the most challenging all by themselves. But
Okay.
we don't have the complexity of vehicles that say the Public Works has. I mean, we do a lot of work on Public Works vehicles, the paratransit buses and all of their admin vehicles, the different kinds of, but they work on their own snow vehicles over there, and so those are probably, between that and fire apparatus, those are probably the most complex vehicles in the fleet. We don't have as much interaction with those.
Okay.
I don't know if Rick talked to you about the GPS pilot that we're looking to do. You want to share that?
No, sure. We did a short pilot, which we're looking to. We requested some funding in the.
So let me give you some context on this. So when I first came on board, I asked Rick, do we know where our vehicles are at all times? Our vehicles could be over in the district, could be over in Virginia. And I think the way we were sort of tracking vehicles, we're looking at mileage and looking at gas utilization, which isn't the best way to do it. And so, the technology is out there to implant GPS systems so you know exactly where your vehicles are real time. And it's something that we've been working on, and I think we just finished a pilot on that, and it's something that we're also going to come back for additional funding.
Correct.
Because we have thousands of vehicles, and we need to know. I would like to know exactly.
Yeah,
Well, the other thing that those systems allow is that they allow us to have access to vehicle information
Okay.
without the vehicle being here.
Yeah.
So ultimately, and Michael and I were talking earlier about transitioning to predictive maintenance, which is the sort of the gold standard or platinum standard, to where theoretically we could come in the morning, pull up our fleet, and if we have vehicles that are riding around low on oil with major engine faults that they're driving them anyways, and things like that, we'll be able to identify what those vehicles are, now reach out and say, look, you need to bring it here. We need to look at this vehicle before something really serious happens.
Wow.
Not to mention also being able to know where it is.
Which is amazing that we can do that now, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And the way that they tie those units into the vehicle information, you're not only pulling all the data from what they call telematics, but there's also things too, like those things also have in them little gyroscopes and things like that. So between the GPS and the gyroscope, they also identify bad or risky driving behavior.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of parameters that are in there that you can build in, and so that you can then begin to generate information back. To be honest with you, one of the things we saw on the pilot, it was a small pilot. One of the things we saw was an employee driving basically all day, every day without a seatbelt on. And I know probably, this group, we're all thinking like, that's crazy. But it still was happening, so we were able to identify that back to the and so they could correct that, because we can't have employees out riding around
Wow, that's
without seatbelts, and we may assume everybody knows to do that, but obviously the reality proved that we didn't know.
And most vehicles don't even allow that now. They have those alarms that kind of
Chimes
go
and
off.
things
Yeah,
like
the
that.
chimes and
They're
everything.
very
It's kind of
annoying.
hard to drive nowadays without a seatbelt.
Without an interruption, but if you want to, you can.
Wow. Okay, yeah.
I'm sure it's more trouble to avoid it in terms of the availability of the fleet. Those things, it impacts all of that, because we were in really bad shape for a while. We were probably half the vehicles really shouldn't be here. There was a time when we were at that point. So it's had a very positive impact, and it's impacted everything. It's impacted our fuel use, because the new vehicles are more fuel efficient. We've also been able to take advantage of this to bring in more of the hybrids and more of the alternative fuel vehicles as well. So we're trying to make all those things work together.
Yeah, one of the things, we're going to get a little bit more strategic about it and begin to look at a lease versus purchase strategy. And so that's sort of our next step, which I think will constantly keep our inventory up to date, sort of around the clock. So we're going to look at that and just see what the cost impact and what
the beneficial impact.
Yeah, there
as well.
are parts of the fleet. Obviously, when you get into police vehicles and all, you're doing a tremendous amount of investment, putting equipment, technology, hardware, lights, everything on those vehicles. But there are other parts of the fleet that are just very vanilla vehicles. They're transportation. And if you could do something like with leasing those vehicles and you're turning them over constantly and keeping the cost of those down, it just makes a big difference. And then it allows us to focus on, you know, the more complex vehicles that we have.
On the risk management side, I know I'll be asking you about this. What are we looking like there? Do you, like, I don't know whether you keep like the percentages, or how would you rate how responsible the vehicles are used by the people who use them, the accident rates and that kind of stuff?
I'm not really privy to that information. That's at risk management. I think that's something that definitely, it's something that we wonder about.
Okay.
You know, it's really,
Yeah, you don't have the overall information. I guess I'm thinking about it in terms of repair.
the accident data, while the repair information flows through here, a lot of the accident data in terms of preventability, what was the nature of the accident, what were the cause of, you know, factors and all those how many of them were just a third party hit us. It's really nothing we could do. We're not really privy to all that data, so I don't know.
We would know in terms of just what's been coming in and whether or not we're seeing a lot of accident-related repairs. So I'm not sure if that has been flat or trending upward or trending downward in the last year.
The only thing we know is trending is cost.
Okay.
The new vehicles are just ridiculously more expensive to repair. An example, a headlight assembly on one of the new Tauruses, $450,
When it
Steve?
first came out, it was $900. So I know between the Interceptor and a Crown Vic, it's almost 3 times more to repair the Interceptor with the same style damage. And now our fleet's going more that direction. So it's definitely costs a lot more to repair them now, just minor damage.
So that's the one thing I could speak to in terms of, you know, trending, but I think you're looking for something a little more analytical in terms of the causes and all.
Not necessarily the causes, but exactly what we see coming in from a physical damage perspective, whether or not we're seeing a lot of damaged vehicles over the last year that has been up or down or been the same, so to speak.
What would you say, Steve?
I think it's pretty much been staying consistent.
Okay.
I'm sure the Interceptors are probably helping because they're all-wheel drive. Where the old Crown Vic were rear-wheel drive, so in bad weather, snow and things like that, I'm sure that's helping.
Right. Okay, very good. You know, we've invested a lot. One of the things, and Sergeant Young could probably speak to this from his experience, but in terms of emergency lighting, I think the lighting that we put on our emergency vehicles is a lot more robust than it used to be. It's hard to quantify, okay, how much reduction in accident. Now, what I would think, though, is that both the police and the fire department have their own risk management sections that do analyze at least the accidents that their particular vehicles are involved in their departments. I'm sure they have records on that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So since certain vehicles are more expensive to fix, how much of a say do we have in what kinds of vehicles we're purchasing?
Right now, not a lot. I mean, it's driven by the marketplace because some of the manufacturers, when you talk particularly pursuit rated, what they call pursuit rated vehicles for police use or whatever, some companies are just withdrawing from the marketplace. You know, they're just not building vehicles in that. You know, and it's cyclical. You know, there are times when, you know, one of our experiences is that when the economy's generally doing well and retail sales are doing well, the manufacturers care less about fleet business, they care less about police business, whereas when things go south, now they want to lean on the government to buy their vehicles, and so then they're a little more responsive. So we're kind of in a cycle right now where they're kind of take it or leave it, you know, and so we have fewer choices. So we have fewer choices.
Vacancy rate has actually come down Rick has always maintained probably a less than 3% vacancy rate in terms of staff, and always up staff. So I think he may be 3 down out of a total 6. Okay, out of a total of 7.
Yeah, we've had some retirements.
We had some retirements, yeah.
Recent retirement.
Right, absolutely. So we'll backfill those, but his attrition level is so low, and that speaks to his leadership and just how he treats his employees, so his staff.
Well, the other thing too is we really try to sell employment here to perspective. We a lot of the our when we go to hire people, as I mentioned, we're not really bringing people in entry level. We just don't have those positions. They're coming journey level, so they need to come with experience. They've worked somewhere else. A lot of times, they're working in an environment, like if they come from dealerships and all, it's they can make a lot of money, but it's a lot of pressure, and maybe not the benefits aren't as good. So we're really working to market ourselves as a good place to work. That you're not going to maybe make as much dollars here, but you're going to have a retirement. You're going to have benefits. You're going to have a good working conditions. It's not pressure filled. We expect you to do your work. We expect you to be competent, professional, do your work, but it's not about the dollar. It's about the service that we're trying to provide to our customers. And I think that sells.
Lifestyle difference too for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Now, how long have you been here, Rick?
I've been actually 12 years.
12 years. Okay.
I've been with the county longer, but in this job for 12 years.
Okay.
With regard to the entry-level positions, is that something that, I know we've talked about re-entry. Do you need OHRM to work with you on trying to establish some entry-level positions, or
Well,
not necessarily?
I don't think so.
Okay.
To be honest with you, we had entry-level positions at one point. The case was made at some point that we really need more full-service mechanics, and so they were bumped up. So I think that we need those entry-level people and all, but I think that what we need is a program, whether it's an apprenticeship or re-entry, something like that, where it's a step in. Right, it's not a career job. This is a step into our workplace.
Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Rick.
Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank
Nice
you.
meeting
Let me
you.
get a group shot, please.
Thank you.
Beautiful, perfect. One more?
Okay, very good.
Introduce you to John Butler.
He was getting my email all the time.
You don't see it, but to me, success is whenever you don't hear anything about it. That's kind of how we kind of define success. You're right. It just runs so smooth. Absolutely.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot that goes on here that a lot of folks just never know about. How you How are you? Good. How are you? Carol. Nice to meet you. All that we do, because I'm always excited about some of the print jobs that you guys are doing, the countywide print jobs, as well as I always get excited when I walk through the warehouse, because I look at your warehouse as sort of this internal Walmart for our agencies that carry anything from bed sheets to fireman boots and all of that stuff. So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, Malcolm.
So first of all, welcome everybody.
Thank you.
Certainly our pleasure to have you come to General Services Division. And I always tell Mr. Butler that I believe we're the most diverse division within the county because of the different things each section performs here. My management team.
I'm going to take it a step further, say the most diverse agency,
Well,
OCS, in the county. But anyway.
Yes, sir. What you said. So my management team is Mr. Adrian Harris, who has the Printing and Graphics Center, and he's got 4 production presses that can produce just about anything you're looking at, from wide format documents to magazine quality print jobs. He's got a range of bindery equipment, and when we walk through, he'll identify some of that for you. John Butler, Material Management Section Chief. He has the largest section within the division, but he's responsible for asset forfeiture, which is a program where we store vehicles that have been confiscated by the police department for suspected drug use. Capital assets, which he manages about 7,500 items valued at $96 million. Surplus property, which is kind of sometimes a very booming business, as well as deliveries of 800 plus inventory items throughout the county, from, as Mr. Butler said, fire equipment, the firefighting turnout gear, some of their tools, custodial supplies, xerographic paper, just a whole range of things. We'll take a quick tour through there so that you can see some of the items that we resell back to county agencies. Who am I missing? Mailroom. We'll take a look at the mailroom on our way back out. You stop by on the way in, you'll get to meet the staff. The supervisor position is currently vacant, but we made a selection, so hopefully we'll fill that rather quickly. But it's a very diverse division within a very diverse agency, and our motto is really to make sure that we're reaching all of the county employees who are kind of our first line customers, and we do interface with the public in some various ways. But it's an exciting job, exciting position, and we really enjoy, kind of how we reach out and touch everyone. So I won't prolong this very long. We'll kind of walk through and certainly answer any of your questions as we visit. But I want to start here because I want to really take a look at the mailroom, who I think does a very important job. We have 5 mail routes per day, 42 mail stops throughout the county, delivering processing more than 2 million pieces of first-class mail, in a year, somewhere around 30,000 kind of overnight packages, all packages that go, overnights that go to the county exec's office or 1301, the county administration building, as well as the courts. Arrive here first, we scan, x-ray them, and then we deliver them to the proper recipient. So it's a very busy little place with 4 employees that I work really hard. And I think you probably know most of them.
Gwen.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Gwen
So,
is all over.
she really is. And, she has a presence that it kind of just takes over wherever she is. So.
And she was one of our recent award recipients
Absolutely.
during our awards and recognition event over the holiday that we had. And Gwen actually, did she win a first class user experience, or maybe our most valuable first class user experience award? So yeah, she was one of the employees that was recognized out of General Services Division.
I didn't realize that.
absolutely,
And I can see why.
Yeah.
Yes. Very valued employee. Really good. Okay. So walk.
Oh, thank you for that.
We'll process the addresses here, and then we run through the folder insert first. Let's look at it. And make sure we got the right amount of postage and all of that stuff on what we call our production area. Across the, but the cabinet is brand new. Folder inserters are a couple of years old. So all of the other equipment on the other side is brand new. We updated it in July, I believe, in July. So, yeah.
I did not know this. Congratulations to you. You didn't tell me about this. Yes, I did.
There's Chase.
Excellent. Angela.
I used to be mayor.
Okay. Well, it's nice to meet you.
Like to see you. Thank you. Yeah, I used to see you in the courthouse.
Yes.
Yeah, oh wow.
And my brother too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Remember, so we're getting ready to go to the Super Bowl. We got a new coach.
All that, yes.
This is always optimistic. The season hasn't even been over already. You're talking Super Bowl already. Always optimistic. I love it. I don't know about you.
So we got 2 what we call weigh-in motion postage machines. That weighs the piece of mail, internally slip the postage amount should be, and process it through, and puts the right amount of postage on it. So we've got 2 of those. So we got those. They were This machine gives you smart process all the in-office correspondence from the various agencies. Most of it is delivered to those agencies. Some agencies, the police department, come here and pick up
Seems inefficient.
That's kind of how they determine
Oh, wow. Are you serious?
Yeah, from our office. We do things like annual reports for most agencies, colleges, and business. We actually started off with lifestyle evaluation. We do a number of different IT jobs for almost every That's the one I
Oh, I know. I got one on my desk right here.
about 6,000.
And we also do W-2s,
W-2, for those people who
I'll
not active to do it online.
did you do the women's program for 2 years? 2 years now? Well, I mean, that's another thing. We do post incredible amount of stuff that goes with it.
These are made for the county, so this is all color production. So on both of these have booklet makers on the side with documents, any kind of
Color is black and white.
Yep. So we have the ability to run black and white inside and do the color copies here so that we don't have to, it doesn't charge per click, so we don't have to use all the color fields in here. As each click is like 4 cents, run up to 20 by 14. So some folks just want to use a window poster. So instead of going 24 by 36, we run a lot of these this way.
We're convinced we have 2 employees that we've lost inside the machine.
They just do anything you can imagine. So we just program them.
That was about as bad as Snyder's job.
Like, wait.
We take care of
They're just so smart. I mean, these are true smart systems. And what we do is we have a storefront which is called NowDoc, which is that every agency does an operator now send a job and go through that storefront called NowDoc. We'll do a job, we'll take a look at it, and once it's ready for production, we'll start the presses and all the billing and everything is done online. So it's pretty good. So very little movement.
This is new.
No, this is we started this for 3 years. Yeah. So we have
This
so
is a 90-page from
happens is sometimes they want to start a campaign. We'll talk with them, lay out some of the options that they have. Some of them do like business cards, bookmarkers, things like that, and maybe a pamphlet with it. So we'll do the whole campaign. We'll just, whatever we need, we got it. And if we can't get it, we have partners that will reach out.
Well, I'm familiar with a lot of them. I've seen it, so you all have done an amazing job.
Good.
Yeah, it's like funny coming here.
one of the things that I would not to really down service division, one like to say, the GSD, great working out Marvin Vernacular, we say we get stuff done.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
I like that.
And so we have, we do the redistribution of surplus property, so we do all the surplus from every agency. And before we get rid of it, when people think they're dirty to reach the end of its useful life, we bring it here and restore it and we assemble it to other agencies that might have a better need for it. So we do that with all of our surplus property.
We got this urgent request to outfit the legislative office in Annapolis, and to also paint. And did we provide some of the
your office?
Yeah.
The furniture there was part of the tax lien that was surplus back to the county. And then we kind of held in reserve just to write out the bill.
And it happened overnight. I couldn't believe it. They mentioned it and we came back and overnight they made it so beautiful. Oh, this is the Maryland National Capital Park. That's talking about, the one that Betty. I don't have this one. You don't have that one? Wow. Oh, from 13. Wow.
So Malcolm, we either resell some of this stuff, or we donate it, or it becomes part of a spot bid, or
all of the above. Our first goal is to redistribute it to another county agency. So kind of leave it in place. People walk through and determine if it's something they want. Something we can't sell or reassign. We have some items that we sell at what we call a spot bid, and that's upstairs where small items people in the county.
She for it to be this dog.
If they're not, if we can't
and some of it you can see is probably going to let it go. It's beyond its life. But then there's some things that come in that are gems that other agencies want.
Yeah, kind of if it's like a metal or whatever, we'll take that and take it to Judge Smith and Son as a recycling. Okay. We're still trying to make sure we get something back to the county for the county and everything in the process. This is just some other inventory items. Ice milk for the winter.
So you have canines that are service dogs for the county, and they retire, and you have employees that want to adopt them. Oh, okay. And so I'm always talking to Malcolm because we've gotten a number of requests where there are county employees who retire want to also take ownership of the dog, and there's a process that's associated with that. We have to charge them 5% of 5 to 15% of the actual original purchase value. So there are other property that you don't see in here that's living
and they consider the dog property.
They do, yeah. Living asset. Yes.
Living asset, yes. And we process that.
I never thought about that. That's part of the surplus property. For the service dog.
And as a purchasing agent, he gets to make all of those.
So it's always good stuff, What do we got on the shelves these days?
So one of the fastest moving items we have is paper. And it's xerographic paper of various sizes and colors that we have here. Hand towels. Our biggest use toilet paper products.
And what about, I know the county council passed legislation and we had to start acquiring some of these goods here. And I thought they were telling me at one point that there was some issue with the courthouse, that it was just very difficult at times. It would slow the process of acquiring products. Did you find something like that, or that's not maybe?
Well, two things. One is, I think all of that products there from a custodial standpoint are probably by their custodial vendor who are providing the service. So I can't think of anything that they will be buying from us here. I don't think most of it from their vendors. Yeah, but anything that an agency buys from us, it's usually 3 to 5 day turnaround.
Tell me your process of acquiring. I guess
our process.
No problems there. Yeah, no, that's what I was just saying. Good problem.
We will kind of get another procurement to make sure we kind of keep all of our contracts up to date so we don't have short.
And then just most of our contracts are county-based small.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there was an issue where there was some part they were trying to buy, and so the legislation was intended to have small county-based businesses, but I think I was hearing some complaint that sometimes it slowed the process, requiring like really common sense sort of items.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether you would that.
We don't have that problem.
What was it, a part for a?
Toilet or something at the courthouse. It was something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that would be yes, facilities.
In the huh?
And they're back here for filing.
That's crazy. 1995.
Yeah.
Tara. Janet Callis. Janet.
Oh, really?
Defense attorney. Beasley. Angela Beasley.
I know. She knows all these people.
Beasley. Angela Beasley's file.
That's the thing, they're probably.
This is how they send them over, though. This which is a problem.
Until you re-enter. But some of them are for destruction and we're still getting them, so. It's just,
This is all new boxes in
Familiar work?
Very, yeah.
This is the record center.
One of these probably
one of
have your name on it.
Yeah.
So that's Craig Short. He's a record
Oh,
clerk.
hi. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Yeah, so, this is all your
Tell her what you told me, that you know where every single document is, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
He's a valuable person then.
Yeah, we
Knows all that
we gotta take a different approach, though, and we will.
Okay.
But I don't know. You guys want to talk about how many records we have here in storage, and just our retention policy, and where do they go afterwards? Yeah.
We have about 15 active agencies holding about 15,000 boxes. So the way the process is based on the state approved retention schedule, boxes are sent over. So they have a life period. Maybe state's attorney may have 15 years, police 25. The maximum here is 25 years. So we get a lot of folk that get to that 25 year and then they want to call this storage. So we're probably, our push is to make sure that folk are adhering to their retention schedules, because you get in more trouble by having something that you should have destroyed. So we try to push them, if you're supposed to have something for 7 years after, destroy it and then move on. And what it does is allow us to bring other boxes in. So we can't really, move quickly if we have someone that's sort of hoarding space. So right now we're sort of in that process of purging so that we can bring other boxes in.
So yeah, we have a very active program where we're identifying those records that have reached the end of their retention period. And back in the old days, we used to shred, but we've identified a source in Baltimore where we can actually incinerate the files, which is a more cost-efficient way. And we know it's really done. So we've been really pushing that. This year and
for the last year, we've done about, 2,500 boxes. Annually, we probably get in at least, I would say, close to 2,500 to 3,500. And if it makes sense to at least push that much out every year as we're pulling in. So that's sort of our goal, and it hasn't always worked. Sort of gets bottlenecked. What happens is once you turn over to a new administration, no one knows record management. Like, there's no person, so it probably takes about 2-3 years before that person sort of put their arms around it and start really proactively starting to do what they're supposed to do based on their retention schedules. So right now we're just trying to get things cleaned up, and get into a document imaging program. So working with OIT to sort of come up with a solution.
So one of the things, I think Glenn around, in our budget, we put about, $600,000, I believe, for at least 600,000, I think, across 2 years. But I think an initial 400,000.
It's 400 they initially.
In FY21 to really begin exploring a document management system to begin to digitize all of this. So you wouldn't walk in, and I walk in, I'm always concerned, like, do we really know where everything is? And it's just, we're just a little bit behind the curve, but that's okay. We'll get there. And I know Malcolm and Adrian can appreciate the technology that we want to bring here, and that's just, it's time. Yeah.
1985. You know, you can never, we never let you forget.
Yeah.
All quoted.
It's amazing. Yeah.
We need to get some lights and shades on this.
That's the other thing, is dark.
It's spooky. So.
Yummy.
Wow.
All right. Well, I don't know if you have any questions. This is General Services Division, and what we do now when you ride past this building or ride past this area, you have maybe a different appreciation. Like, oh, it's an operation back there. Like riding down, Central Avenue and Capitol Heights, and knowing what's going on behind that gate over there. So,
I haven't appreciated.
The one thing we did mention is we also share the building with Fire Logistics Division. This is where firemen need to replace that turnout gear. They'll come in, they'll get fitted, and then we'll put it off the shop. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop for them. Let's get fitted, get their equipment.
You said 40% of it public safety. So nice to meet you. Yeah, the Jonathan.
you can send them my workload.
Are we coming together?
Take off mine now. There we go. I came out to see my friend. Come on. Sorry. You met somebody at a good place. Cut you out. Right, your family. My pleasure.
Right here.
Good. Thank you
so much, everyone.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.